Today I'm going to do some landscape photography inside a foggy forest using my 70 to 200 telephoto lens. It's an f4 lens, image stabilized. It's an L lens from Canon, and the body is going to be a Canon EOS R, so it's a full frame. During this video you'll hear from me tips and suggestions and composition ideas, and I will also talk about why you would want to use a telephoto lens inside the forest, because if you follow my videos, you know that I'm using my 24 to 105 millimeters inside the forest. Using a telephoto means two things. One, you'll have to stay a lot further away from your subject, and this will give you a completely different perspective. And secondly, the telephoto lens compresses the fields, and this means that distances between different elements, even though they are bigger, they seem smaller. The settings for this first image are 2.5 seconds, f11, ISO 100. I also used polarizer. And as you can see, the histogram is evenly distributed. There are no clippings to the left or to the right. The tree was the element that drew my attention and made me decide to photograph or to take that first image. As you can see, the forest is pretty dark, and you will have to use a tripod every time you go inside the forest to photograph. Don't be fooled that it's daytime and you're going to photograph by hand, because it's not going to happen, and your images will have a lot of noise in them. Autumn is officially here, and the cold weather and the rain already started. The leaves are not yellow or orange yet. Usually in these kind of forests, these are beech trees, and usually in this kind of forest, the leaves are getting yellow and orange on the outside of the forest in a process that starts slow, and inside the forest, everything is going to happen fairly quickly. The leaves are going to turn their colors pretty fast, and I have to be on the lookout for that if I want to capture the full colors of autumn. For this image right here, as you can see, there is a lot more light coming from that direction, and this helps a lot because the settings are now 0.6 seconds, f11 and ISO 100. So if you follow the light inside the forest, it will help you with a shorter exposure time, but still you're going to need the tripod. The fog is another great element in this situation, because it allows me to get rid of the clutter and the chaos. It allows me to show the viewer an image that focuses only on a particular element. So fog, not only that, of course, it adds mystery, the photos look a lot more interesting, but they look a lot more interesting because you get rid of all the unwanted elements, and the brain of the viewer and the eye of the viewer and the attention of the viewer will focus only on the elements that you as a photographer want for them to be focused on. Over there, in that direction, the fog is pretty thick. So what I really like is the silhouettes, and the silhouette especially of that tree over there. I'm going to try and frame it in a portrait mode. As you can see, the camera is ready. The same settings apply, 0.6 seconds, f11, ISO 100, and the focal length is 135 millimeters. also like what is happening over there. I'm having that tree and the light coming from that direction, but I will have to go further away up the trail to be able to frame it in the way that I want. One of the problems that you may encounter when using a telephoto is that because you go further away from the subject and you have all this fog, so I'm referring only to foggy situations, the fog may look thicker because you're further away from the subject, so the details are less visible. The first version of the photo was in landscape mode, and I realized that it didn't feel right. I mean, it was looking interesting, but not as I wanted. The settings for this image were let me just check, 1.3 seconds f11 ISO 100, but again, it didn't feel right. So I did another one in portrait mode, and usually when you're using a telephoto inside a forest, portrait mode is going to look a lot more interesting because the layers and the distance between layers are going to be flattened, the trees are going to look straight, and I don't know, it will give you a better feeling. What is interesting to this situation over here is that there is a lot of light in the background, and you have the dark silhouette of trees that are surrounding this darkness. The settings are 0.3 seconds and f11, and the idea is not to have the histogram clip to the left or to the right. So I don't want to have blown out highlights, but I also don't want to have complete black shadows. You need to see some of the details in the shadow area, but you also have to feel that sensation of darkness surrounding the light. This is one of those situations when the framing, the composition works better in a horizontal way. Now, the way you can think about it is that if your subject tends to go up and you are impressed by the vertical of the subject, then the composition should be vertical. But in this situation, I really like the horizontal development of the forest, the alternation between darkness and light, the light coming from the right, and framing this scene in a portrait mode didn't make sense. Now the settings are 0.6 seconds, f11 ISO 100, and the focal length is 70 millimeters. Some occasions inside the forest, you're not able to use really long focal length, but it depends from situation to situation. The benefits of using a really long lens is that it changes the perspective completely, and the same composition that I would do with a 24-105 looks completely different when shot at 200 millimeters. Just to do a short recap, using a telephoto lens inside the forest to do your landscape photography will do two main things. The first one is going to compress the fields, and elements that are further away from each other will look a lot closer. And this creates the impression that everything is kind of like in the same plane, and it gives a completely different perspective on the same scene. The second thing is that you're going to be further away from your subject. Again, this will create a different perspective on the same composition because you're photographing from a larger distance. So it's a good exercise, and it's also something that you should think about. Changing the lens you are used to photograph in a location will in some way change the frames that you're doing. You are going to look for the same compositions probably, but you're going to do them in a different way because the way the lens, the camera sees is completely different. Now, I hope this video was interesting to you, and if you have something to add, use the comment section below. And until next time, keep on photographing, because it's the only way that you can get better. Bye bye.